Can you tell me some of your experiences over in Greece?
Yes, the main experience in Greece, we left the Western Desert and we went up to northern Greece at Vervi Pass, and it was up there in the rarefied air of the Albanian Alps that we first met the onslaught of the German motorised infantry and their light tanks. Naturally, it was hard to get the tanks through the Alps, and it was the main road that we guarded there mainly, and the guarding of the main road, we had 2nd 1st Anti-Tank Regiment there that cleaned up quite a few of the tanks. Then eventually, at another pass further to our east, the Germans managed to break through, and they come in, and instead of fighting them on one front, we were also fighting them on the rear. We fought our way out of that down to another line on the Aliakman River, and we got tied up there, and we fought our way out backwards back to the stand at the Aliakman River, where we managed to get a swing bridge put across by the Australian engineers, and we got the battalion out of a night evacuation in a single line going across this swinging bridge, which we went back then to the Brailus Pass. And now the Brailus Pass is part of the Mount Olympus area, and we held the Germans up there for quite a time. We ran into a bit of trouble there because the Germans managed to get their artillery across the Lamia River, and they got their artillery there, and we had a spotter plane going over all the time to look at our positions and to pinpoint them, which they did for the German artillery. And after a ranging shot or two, they managed to get a direct hit on a 2nd 1st Field Regiment 25-pounder artillery that we had there as artillery support for the battalion. And we had a section on the looking after the ground support for the gun, and that section was under a corporal by the name of Corporal Charlie Jewell from Wagga, and they got a direct hit on the gun, blew the gun to smithereens, plus the gun crew and the section that was there, and cleaned that up. But Greece capitulated, and we were taken by destroyers, the Hasty, and we were taken by the British destroyer over to Suda Bay in Crete, and from there General Freiberg was the New Zealand general in charge of the troops on Greece. And for once during World War II, Anzac Corps, the Australian New Zealand Army Corps, were together, and that's the affiliation that we have as far as Anzac is concerned. It was at Hatterackland on the 20th of May 1941 that the German paratroopers landed. On the day of the landing, Colonel Doherty said to me as his RSM, he said, "I think we'll go down and have a swim in the sea tomorrow," and that was on the 19th of May. And at any rate, as we were getting ready to go down to the sea on the 20th of May, the phone line rang, and we were on the civilian phone line there, and told us that the paratroopers had landed at Melanie, which was down the coast about some 50-odd kilometres from where we are, and they were giving the 2nd 1st Battalion quite a knocking around there, and they managed to take over the aerodrome there and started landing their big Junker troop carriers there on the aerodrome. So it looked as though we were going to be overrun, and they decided to evacuate Greece. And and we were taken out, and when we were looking out to sea, and we could hear this humming coming in from the sea, and after a while it became a real drone, and we looked out, and there's dozens of these big Junker troop carriers coming through, and as they come through, they come to the coastline. They went up high enough so they could drop their paratroopers off, and then before we knew it, there was hundreds of paratroopers landing on top of our positions. We'd kept quiet all the time we were there when the spotted plane come over, so they didn't know they were our positions there. And as they were coming down, we looked up in awe and wonder, because we'd got used to handling the troops at ground level. It was the first time we managed to find the troops coming down on top of us. Well, we didn't do much about it till they started firing at us with their Parabellum, the little handheld submachine gun, and we thought, well, if they're going to fire at us, we'll fire at them. And there wasn't many of the poor souls that managed to get on the ground with some lead in them. We held our position there for long enough to be evacuated when they decided to evacuate Crete, and that's when we got on a destroyer, a British destroyer, down at Heraklion Pier, and we got on the Imperial, and we got all our troops on board. We were about half an hour late taking out, and as soon as we took off at full speed towards Alexandria in Egypt again, the dive bombers, as soon as come daylight, the dive bombers started coming at us, and as they were coming down, the captain of the Imperial was up on the bridge, on the roof of the bridge with his binoculars, watching the bombs leave the dive bombers, the Messerschmitt dive bombers, and he was giving commands to the wheelsmen, hard to port, hard to starboard, and dodge the bombs as they were coming down. And he managed to miss most of them, and then one got a near miss, opened up the plates on the destroyer, and the boatswain, when he went down and had a look at the damage, decided to tell the skipper that we wouldn't last for much longer with the water coming in. So he ordered the Hotspur to come alongside, and as it come alongside, we jumped from one ship to the other in mid-Mediterranean. Some of them didn't make the jump, but most of them did. And so we landed back in Alexandria. Of the 1,100 of the battalion that went into Greece, there was only 400 of them managed to get out of Crete. So that'll give you some idea of what we went through there.
And I guess for younger generations who probably aren't going to see, well, you would hope wouldn't see things like World War II and World War I again, how important is it for them to remember on Anzac Day?
Yes, it is most important, and I believe that Anzac Day has really gone ahead as far as the younger generation is concerned. I give quite a few Anzac addresses at different times at schools and also at different organisations, and I go through an unabridged version of the history that I made as a member of the 2nd 4th Australian Infantry Battalion.
And how do you find they respond?
The responding is wonderful indeed. It was wonderful just going down the train for one Anzac Day, and a chap come up on me in the train. I went down by train, and he come up to me and he said, I'd like to shake the hands of one of you chaps that made this country the freedom that we have here today. And when I see the way the rest of the countries in the world are going on, I start to wonder how long we're going to keep that freedom. But it's up to each of every one of us to try and do something about it, to make sure that the sacrifices paid by our fallen brethren are not made in vain.